Hi, everyone. This is episode 9.
Hi, I'm Debbie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Ronnie.
And I'm Lisa McIntyre. Welcome to Working Wonders. Today, we are joined by our special guest, Mary Ellen Ryson. Mary Ellen is a business attorney, and she's here today to talk to us about contracts and COVID clauses. Hi, Mary. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, would you please?
Yes. So I am a business attorney. Basically, that means for the last 12 years, I've been practicing all manner of corporate law, which is business to business dealings, buying part of a business, selling part, dealing with leases, and I focus on employment law, and it kind of couples nicely. So everything to do with multi-jurisdictional dealing with your employees. I focus a large part of my practice on weddings and events. Part of that is because when I was going through college and law school, I worked as a high-end caterer. So I've seen all the stuff. My tents have blown over and I've broken cases of wine and I've been screamed at by drunk uncles. And so I write for my experiences. I work with just about every manner of vendor in the industry. I work nationally. I'm licensed in a variety of states, but most transactional work I can do just about anywhere and do. I am based currently in Minnesota. I'm a Minnesota girl, that's where I'm from. However, about 6 years ago, my husband got a sweet job offer in Seattle. So we talked about it, thought about it. I got my license in Washington and we moved there for about 4 years. I've got a great client base out of Seattle. I really love working with those folks, but we did move back to Minnesota a couple of years ago. But I honestly, as we've all learned, you can work from just about anywhere, and my clients don't seem to care where I'm working. I could work on the moon and that would work out for everybody. Yeah, I really like working with weddings and events, mostly because those are my people, and you know, they're customer service ninjas and brave to the core. So yeah, that's a little about me.
Quick
We're
question,
so
just
excited to
about,
have you.
do you have to be licensed in the state where they're asking your law from? In other words, let's say I'm in New Jersey. If I called you to do a contract or something for me, would you have to be licensed to practice in New Jersey to do that? Because you said you got licensed in Washington. That's what made me.
Yeah, I'm in Minnesota, Washington, Oregon, New York. So if I have reasonable contacts with somebody based in any of those states, or they're a pre-existing client, I can do transactional work just about anywhere. But if for some reason we have to answer a court filing or I have to appear, we would hire somebody in New Jersey to help us with that aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, to touch on that point, right off the bat, I want to jump into the question that we were all talking about, and that's what's the difference between a retainer versus a deposit, and is there a way to make a deposit non-refundable?
I'm so glad you asked. So there is not legally a lot of difference between a deposit and a retainer. They're both bad. Both of those terms legally indicate that there's a possibility of refund, and that is not what we're doing. That's not what we're expecting. We're taking that upfront payment. I like the term date reservation fee, because what you're doing is you are taking money to reject all other offers that come for that specific day. You are basically being paid for your opportunity costs. So date reservation fee is what most people are calling their retainer. A retainer just legally causes you problems if you have that language in your contract. So date reservation fee is clearly described as what you're being compensated for. That's why we take that check when we're getting the signed contract, making sure that it's all, you know, acknowledged that that's what it's for. Those are earned funds. I like to see people stagger out in 3 to 5 payments, the rest of what they're getting. So they're continuing to earn that for the increased value of that date. So that valuable Saturday in June, your ability to book something else if somebody cancels on you 3 weeks out is incredibly difficult. You're never going to make that 2,000,
Right.
20,000, whatever you're going to make. So I like you earning that all the way along.
We were always told to use the term retainer instead of deposit, but you're saying don't use either of those. Call it a date reservation fee?
Yep, because that's what it is. You're being paid to not take
Hold the
any other
date.
business on that date. Yeah.
Okay, so let's back up. First, before we start getting into the context of the contract, let's talk about the actual contract.
Okay.
So there is lots of questions that we obviously have internally, but we have questions about who should draw up your contracts, whether it should be self-made or if you should actually have an attorney such as yourself draw one up for you. And then when would that contract be put in place? So is there a certain dollar amount that we would need to have the customer sign a contract for, or should it be for everything?
Couple of questions there. I'm going to start with, you can absolutely 100% draw up your own contract. You pay an attorney to know the laws of your jurisdiction. I'm writing for
Right.
experience in the industry. I'm writing for whatever state we're in, making sure that we're up on current case law. So if you end up in front of a judge in that state, everything that's going to make the case go your way is there. We can check every box. But I'm also writing for experience. We're in happy business. Your contract is an extension of your marketing materials. So it's got to be clear. It's got to be upbeat. It has to be pleasant.
Right.
And those are things that an experienced attorney should be able to bring to you. But you 100% have the ability to contract with somebody. And I do recommend that you have something in writing for any dollar amount, just mostly because it's so easy to do.
Yes.
I was just going to say something. Now, if you, let's say you have something in writing and you send it and the customer sends you a deposit, now I will change it to date reservation fee as
Yeah.
soon as we're off the air. Even if she doesn't sign it, does that constitute, is that then like legally binding as a contract?
Yeah, don't take money without getting a signature. I would always be very
Right.
firm on that. That your hardline policy, be polite, but be firm on that one.
And
Because if you don't have
electronic
something signed, then you owe them for some amorphous thing for whatever money they gave you, and you don't know what it's for, and you can't say that it's not for that. So yeah,
okay.
don't take money
Okay.
until you have a signature.
So we were going to discuss this at some point. One of the people in our Float the Convention group had an issue recently where their client canceled on them and then wanted the balloon supplies back that our friend had potentially purchased for their event. And what do you have to say about that?
Well, again, you want to spell out in your contract that most typically the first payment is for your time, that reservation of date. A lot of the upcoming and following payments are going to be for whatever goods and services you're offering. If they cancel per the terms of your contract, effectively they've used that money to buy whatever you went out and got with it. So I would always turn that stuff over. If you want to keep the money, I would give them whatever it is, the string or just the, Mylar balloons, whatever it is. But, that's theirs, just like the money's yours.
Yeah, it's
Right.
one of those things where their deposit might be, $250, but we only purchased $20 worth of balloons for their event.
Yeah.
And this client in particular was like asking for the receipts because they wanted to know, what was spent and that kind of thing. And it just kind of goes into the weeds a little there. And for anybody that saw, my response was, when they canceled the cake, did they ask the baker, for the eggs and the flour back? Like it kind of like, that's not quite how this works.
No,
How would
it's
you have something
petty,
like
but-
that phrased in it is a little
Yeah.
petty, understandable too, though, because they probably recognize that we get a, like a distributor rate, versus buying something at, a
The
party
only thing
store.
is that in
Right.
this particular case, it wasn't even so much balloons. There were florals that were bought. There were, I think she said Eiffel Tower. Like she had bought things that the woman, I think, plans on selling in order to recoup some of her money. I think
Yeah.
that,
Right. But
Mm.
they're her items to sell then.
yeah, they
So
are.
like in the
hers.
terms of the baker, when we're talking about, well, did you give back the eggs? Did you give back the flour? No, because the baker didn't say he's keeping the deposit to pay for materials to make the cake. He said that he's keeping the deposit because you reserved him for a date and he
Right.
couldn't take on any more clients.
Right.
Although I
we
do
had
love,
talked
I
about-
do love the idea of like counting out, like, okay, fine, here's your 44 balloons for the column that you order. Like, here you go. This is the supplies that you paid for because that's how much would have been used.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Do not do that. That I am not saying to do that, but I'm just I imagine.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of what's in everybody's contract is birthed out of personal experience, the things that keep you up at night, that person that gave you a hard time.
Yeah.
So if you find you're running into something more than a few times, think about putting it in your contract. You know, if people are routinely asking you for itemization of what you spent, maybe slap a fee in, your hourly fee for any time spent providing an accounting of the event.
How is there, I know, a benefit or a not benefit, not the right word, to keep your contract like to one page or?
Now, mine are always at least, you know, four
Yeah,
to six is
several
pretty standard.
pages.
Yeah.
And every word is in their trial by fire. You know, every word is based on some case where
Oops,
somebody,
I should have had this in my contract.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
it's either, you know, clarity for the client or protection for you, and all of that is valuable.
Well, it's like the first time a customer brought balloons from Party City to supplement the balloons that I was doing. The next contract said no other balloons are allowed.
Right, you're
you know?
constantly
Yeah.
making amendments and
Like I didn't.
clauses.
Oh, yeah.
This was a long time ago, but who thought?
Right.
So we
Yeah.
have
Well,
a
so
Go ahead.
we have a couple
Lisa.
questions from the chat if we could address those real quick because they're really good
Sure.
ones. Can the signature be an email reply with them acknowledging the terms, or does it need to be an actual signature with pen and paper?
It needs to be a signature, but that can be whatever you want it to look like. E-signatures, DocuSign, as long as it's on the contract. I do not like the idea of some email verifying the terms of the contract because there's an argument to be made that those aren't the terms they thought they were agreeing to. You want a signature on what you think your policies and terms are.
Yeah, I personally use a website called managersal.com. And it's a website that was built by an attorney like yourself, although he became an attorney and is now runs an entertainment business. And so the website is fantastic for entertainers specifically. And I just tweak it to incorporate, you know, my decor items and face
Yeah.
painting if that's the case. And full of disclaimers and all that kind of thing. I need to see if I can change the word retainer fee in there too. But
Yeah,
with my
I want to go and
clients,
change ours now.
Right away.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. We're off the air.
Yeah.
That's the first thing
It's-
that's gonna happen.
Right? Because ours,
That's-
ours specifically says non-refundable deposit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I like the
yeah,
beauty of
first
the-
order of business tomorrow, I think for everybody is to
Yeah.
be
I
tweaking
am
their
on a mission
contracts. But mine is an
naturally.
electronic signature. They sign it electronically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
My bucket list includes get the entire industry to dump the word deposit or retainer. It's, you know,
Right. My attorney told me there's no such thing as a non-refundable deposit.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
He said
Because,
try
you know,
standing.
somebody had it in their contract and it went to
Right.
the court system. They determined that, you know, a deposit indicates that, you know, there's money to be returned if the services aren't delivered.
Right.
But that's why everybody started using retainer, because we were told that is refundable, but now we learned just now that that's also no good.
Yeah.
See, this was
Yeah.
Right.
beneficial to everybody.
I think
Tell your friends and family
yeah.
to listen because
We started
all-
using deposit because people, it's that understanding that people get that it's like, oh, I'm putting up some money. So it's that like almost dumbing it down, but then that
Yeah.
puts you in danger by dumbing it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
First priority is protect yourselves.
Mm.
Second,
Absolutely.
customer service every time, you know, and I think by the term date reservation fee, and there are, you know, a couple of iterations of that, you can use whatever really fits, but just letting them know in a clear statement that this money is for reserving the date and my time.
Right. So going back
and-
to what you said about trial by fire, Mary Ellen, let's talk about COVID, because obviously that
Yeah.
was a huge trial by fire for all of us.
Yeah.
I've had my attorney make about 7 or 8 amendments to our COVID clause.
Yeah.
Initially putting one in, and then constantly as things were coming in and more things were being thrown at you, you know, switching verbiage, adding things.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about what a COVID clause should say? Should we have one in our contract? And how will it hold up in a court of law if we need it to?
Everything could potentially hold up in a court of law as long as it's a clear understanding between the parties. There isn't some other, doctrine that avoids what you have to do. I think a lot of people are putting in, like, the whole world knows what a force majeure clause is suddenly. 12 months ago, nobody had any idea what that was.
Right.
But a well-drafted one should cover you in almost any situation. I'll toot my own horn here for a second. I've been writing these for 12 years, and mine held up exceptionally well in 2020 because it just made clear what the terms were we were agreeing to regarding when a force majeure event occurred, and what we were going to do about it. So there wasn't any, question or automatic return of money. So something like that, definitely want a strong, well-worded force majeure clause that plays well with your rescheduling clause, your cancellation clause. Regarding stating something about COVID specifically, I don't necessarily like that for your master contract, because we might be signing this today and holding it in 18 months. Who knows what it's going to mean then. So I like putting in whatever your intention is, working that into your rescheduling. A lot of people are going toward, an opportunity to reschedule, and they're limiting it to, one time in the next 12 months, 24 months, just sort of spelling out what you're willing to extend if things go horribly wrong. If you're in a COVID situation, if you're legislated out of doing your event for a period of time. But whatever the intention is, I think you can put in there without actually saying the word COVID. Where I do recommend some specific COVID language is when you are actually rescheduling. I like an amendment to your original contract that states that, you're changing the date, maybe the location, maybe the time, things like that. And I like to work in what your safety policies and procedures are, so they know that you are meeting whatever the current government standards are. And I put in a line that as they're modified, you will meet every regulation out there. But I also like to put in some specific indemnification language for third-party claims against you. Because especially in Washington, the language has been really wishy-washy about who bears responsibility for an event. I like to make crystal clear that everybody agrees it's not you, and that they take responsibility for any third-party claims of all of their guests.
Can you explain exactly what you mean by that? Because I'm like, what do you like? Who would be the third party? I guess is who I'm curious.
Uncle Tim, who came to your wedding.
I'm sorry?
Uncle Tim, who came to your wedding. He would be a third party if he had some sort of claim against, for caterers, it's food poisoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, something happened.
Yeah, in this case, it's, did the balloon designer bring COVID to the party?
Okay.
Right.
At the end of the day, that is an exceptionally hard thing to prove in court, especially in the terms of a global pandemic, but it doesn't necessarily stop somebody from, shaking it down.
And making those accusations.
Yeah.
So I think that we're experiencing it on a different level, though. We're experiencing people continuously canceling their events due to COVID. And I know that there's a lot of decorators that are kind of apprehensive now about starting to book events because, things are changing from one week to the next. And that's kind of when all of this first started, back in March of 2020, the majority of us were refunding. We were just giving everyone's money back because it was such uncharted territories for all of us. We didn't know what to do. And then you're dealing with schools and graduations, and it just seemed like at the time it was the right thing to do. But the further we got into it and the more knowledgeable people became of it, I had an instance where a woman was planning a bridal shower and her venue specifically told her, you're allowed to have 25 people. That was it. And when she turned in her final numbers, it was at 32. And they said, you cannot have it here. You either have to get your guest count down to that 25, or you can't have it here. And she wasn't willing to do that. So she was switching locations and having it at someone's home. So where I came in is when, she called me to decorate this bridal shower for her. She was planning on having it at this big place where she wanted to fill up some space because there was only X amount of people invited. Mm-hmm. Now she was in a smaller location at someone's home. She didn't need all these decorations. And that's when I kind of was like, well, we all know what's going on. Yeah. Everything has been laid out very clearly for you. But unfortunately, at that time, I didn't have the protection in my contract to say to her, okay, you can't
Yeah.
scale this back.
Yeah.
Phone call was made quickly after that. So what, in regards to that, people canceling their events and, you know, not trying to sound unsympathetic, but crying COVID
Yeah.
because,
No.
you know, to try to get money back or out of their contract with you.
Yeah. I mean, there are no real bad guys here. Everybody had a really rough year. I feel
Right.
for the clients. I really do. But, you know, I work for the businesses. And so I want to make sure that you guys are solvent and you're still here on the other end of this. And hopefully your attorneys got a hold of you quickly and told you what contract defenses you had to giving all the money back, which is totally counterintuitive to what everybody does in events. It's all about customer service. Suddenly you have to be
Right.
that guy, which feels horrible. But if you have to give money back 20, 30 times over, you'll go bankrupt. So finding
Right.
ways to always make sure that you kept the cash, I think was very important. And like I said, making sure for future events, whatever your scheduling policies are, give it a limited period of time. If you have concerns about, you know, they were originally booked on a Thursday and they want to move to a Saturday, put in any upcharges that they may be subject to, or just let them know that they may be subject to some fee and you can figure it out later when they try to rebook. Yeah, just things of that nature. You know, certainly, you know, from the get-go, I've always had something in my contracts about scalability, how, you know, you can go back maybe 10% of the original, but, you know, otherwise, you know, it is what it is.
So
Well,
you
it's like
do
a
offer a
printing
little
company.
leeway.
Some, yeah, because again, you know, in normal times or COVID times, it's part of your marketing materials. They're looking at this and making
Right.
a decision about you. So, you know, being unnecessarily firm or, you know, hard or unpleasant in your contract language, I think is bad for you. And that's my job, is to make this good for you. So
I
The
have
only thing
a
with my entertainer contract, because I do twisting balloons also, I've started taking inquiries for twist. Like I don't like it's so weird because I'm like I'm fine with dropping off balloons, you know, and like setting up and then leaving, but it's so weird for me the idea of like being in someone's house like twisting balloons.
yeah.
But I put in there that like I will be wearing a mask the entire time that I am there. Like I
Mhm.
don't care if you're like what your guests are doing. Like if I'm in there for an hour, I'm wearing my mask the whole time. And I did have somebody who was like, "Oh, I see that you're, you know, that you're going to be wearing a mask." Like, yes, I am. Like, "Oh, there's only going to be 20 people there." I'm like, I don't care. I
Yeah.
don't know your 20 guests.
Mhm.
And to protect myself in these times when we should be wearing masks, I will be wearing a mask the whole time. If you don't want me wearing a mask while I'm twisting balloons, I can totally cancel the contract. You don't have to worry about it at all. And they ended up canceling it, and I'm okay with that because I'm like, no, I'm wearing a mask. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it's just, I don't care if you put me outside. I don't like, there's 20 strangers that I'm going to be around, and I already raised my prices because I don't want to do it. I don't want to. I'm fine with like I said, like I'm fine setting up and leaving, but the idea of having 20 people swarming around, and from the eyes of an entertainer, they always say that there's going to be 5 kids there and then 15 kids show up and you're going, so weird how that
Mhm.
like tripled in size. So even though
oh
they
yeah.
told me there was going to be 20 people there, I'm like, you're full of crap. That's never exactly how many people are there.
No,
Yeah,
So,
and
they do try and fudge it in the you know, the count a little bit.
yeah.
But
yeah,
I
whatever
Imogen,
your
Marilyn,
protections are for yourself, yeah, addressing all of those things in your contract
sort
politely,
of
but
like
firmly.
COVID a little, which was much more of a problem this year, I think, than in past years. Weather, like how do
Oh
we,
yeah. Like a
what's
weather
it,
clause.
like I always had a weather clause, but like I
Mhm.
didn't work outside as much as I did this year. I mean, and we were working in horrible weather and there were thunderstorms that blew things down. How do you protect yourself from that? Is that also force majeure or?
You can go a couple of different ways with that, and you should. Definitely in your force majeure clause, it should account for, you know, weather and specify what weather is. So they aren't canceling on you because it's a light, gentle rain. You don't want to give them
Right.
that sort of backdoor out of your contract. But also, I always put in what work conditions are necessary. Do you need outlets? Do you need warmth? Do you need shelter? things
Yeah,
like that.
shelter.
Of course, it's fun.
I was even referring more to like, I set up a graduation, I did these huge arches, and then this fierce storm blew through, and they called me in a panic that one of the arches just like, exploded on. And it's a good customer. It's a school I do a lot of work for. I went back and I fixed it as best I could.
Yeah.
But is there a way to write in a contract that I won't, I would have for them anyway, but for somebody else, I might not feel that way. Is there a way to protect yourself better?
Yeah, I mean, and there are a lot of just basic doctrines of contract law, and the transfer of goods is one of them. Once you've delivered the goods,
I'm gone.
That's their issue. Managing the relationship is different. If it is within your ability and you know they're a good client, you want to maintain that relationship, or you just want to be the good guy, you can disregard everything in your contract and sort of come to a new agreement when it comes to things like that. But the question is, do you have to? And I would try to always set you up to not have to.
Right.
And just be clear. I mean, on that simple issue, just be clear at what point have you done your job and you're out.
We have something in that, especially for the summer, where it basically says you understand that balloons do not do well
in the sun.
Outdoors, and especially like we're in Las Vegas, so it'll be 117 degrees outside, and it's like, I can put that arch out there, but and it says like right there in one of our things, like, you understand that balloons do not do well in conditions, and like we will do what we can, but once it's set up and we're gone, like that's it. And it's put a lot more nicer
better wording.
It's phrased a lot nicer in the contract, but that stemmed from doing a delivery, dropping off an arch, and they moved it to the sun. Like, I put it underneath the canopy, and I'm like, okay, great. Like, this is where it's going to be, over the cake table. And they decided that they wanted to move it, and they moved it in direct sunlight, and it was like black and purple balloons. And I was like, they called, they're like, the balloons popped. I'm like, how could they, like, what happened? And they said, oh, we moved it. I was like, well,
oh, did you?
I have 5 other setups that I have to do today. I can try to get back to you, but you might just be SOL. And like, they were cool about it, because they were like, I guess we should have just left it, but it's like, there's nothing.
If I could interject here real quick, somebody has asked, we kind of glossed over it a little bit earlier, assuming everybody pretty much knew, that somebody has asked, what exactly is force majeure?
Oh,
if you could explain that
force
briefly.
majeure is a basic, it's a very common contract clause that addresses what happens if something out of the control of both parties occurs. Now we're talking about tornadoes, fires, mass pandemic, things like that.
Like an act of God, right?
Yes.
I was just going to say, it's like legal jargon for act of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the idea that it just is agreed that a force majeure event will cancel the contract. And that's not true. You can take a lot of steps to really spell out what that means. For example, instead of saying, adverse weather or storm, classify that it has to elevate to emergency warnings. The sirens have to go off in order to trigger this exit out of the clause, and just being very clear about what in fact is a force majeure event. And if you're agreeing, you're proposing it, they're agreeing to it, and then that's what will protect you if an unexpected pandemic shows up.
Right. And for our purposes, COVID no longer falls into the category of force majeure because it's something we all know about. Isn't that correct?
It depends. The devil is always in the details. So, and there are a bajillion different versions of force majeure clauses. So it's really going to depend on what's in your contract.
Because I could see a venue, like right now, like, look, take Vegas, for example. We were open. Venues were supposed to be allowed to host 250 people. And literally the next weekend, they were like, oh, just kidding. It's back down to 50 people. So, if somebody had booked something and they thought that they could have, like with Stephanie's, lady, where she thought that, well, hers is different, but, if somebody books something and they're like, oh, we can have 75 people now because we can have more than 50. And then the government decides, oh, no, you can't have 75 anymore. And they have to cancel that venue. Like, that's not something that's within their control or the venue's control, really.
No, but what Stephanie was saying was definitely in this woman's control. She was told.
Oh yeah, she had control there. Yeah,
and they're also,
far enough out.
We all knew. I mean, when you're talking June and July, we all knew what the program was. I mean, we were watching numbers go up and down and up and down, and things are opening and things are closing, and phase 1 to phase 4 within a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I think that it was kind of just, book at your own risk, invite at your own risk. You could think that you're planning this, and a week from now, you might have to change it. And I at least know here in Chicago, venues were very, very upfront about that, extremely upfront. And so I have a really good girlfriend who she's a florist. She owns her own shop, and it's been a nightmare for her because
Her stuff
she
perishable.
doesn't know to order. I mean, thankfully for us, if we have materials and supplies, we can add them to our inventory.
Right.
They're not going bad. They're always going to get used. When you have thousands of dollars worth of cut flowers, then what do you do? So I had kind of peeked at her contract because she had to really remove a lot of her customer service from it and really get down to the nitty gritty and be straightforward. And I mean, it got to the point, and I agreed with her. She's like, I'm afraid to take money from anybody. I mean, it got to that point in the summer that you just, anytime you heard event, you were like, oh gosh, and I was like calling people every couple of days, like, hey, have you talked to your venue? Have you, just checking in with you?
Well, we've had an even stranger thing now, that we have parties booked and somebody calls me and says, my kid was in school, they were exposed, and now we're all in quarantine. How can you tell somebody you're not going to reschedule or even really they're in quarantine? They didn't even ignore what a venue said.
Right.
It's not even their kid that's sick because they went roller skating with friends. Their kid was in somewhere where somebody else got it, or their husband went to work and came home and somebody in the office got it. I don't think you can protect yourself from that, and I don't think you can hold a customer responsible for that. I mean,
well, but that's kind of what I asked Mary Ellen earlier when I said, and I don't mean this to be insensitive. I understand people really are getting sick, but everybody is trying COVID.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can, and you don't even have to test positive. It's, I was exposed to somebody on Tuesday, so I have to cancel the event. And you're like, okay, we're all exposed. You go to
I'm talking about people who, like, their kids are in isolation, they're not allowed out of the house.
Yeah.
They're really in quarantine. Somebody in the family got it. Like I said, the father comes home from work and he's sick. You cannot have a bar mitzvah when the father is laid up in his bed. I mean,
Right.
And if anything, I think we've all learned that you need to have a well thought out payment clause, rescheduling clause, and cancellation clause, and they all have to play very well with each other. You don't want any conflict there.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to call you after this and have you.
I would love to talk to any of you.
All right.
I think that's where the
tomorrow morning's agenda too.
I think that's where the trickiness came in for, when you were saying, so then I think a lot of us kind of adapted okay, well then you'll get a credit on your account. Yeah. You'll get a credit on your account for the amount that you paid for future use.
Rescheduling, I got to reschedule 2 bat mitzvahs and from May to October. And like, it's crazy because the same thing, like you're saying, it's like, even they were going to have a smaller one in May, and then a bunch of people in the family got exposed, and they're like, well, we're just going to have to wait. And I said, okay, well, the decor's here. Like, you let me know whenever your date is, when you reschedule it this year. And I even gave, because I know them, personally, I was able to be like, whenever you want it, like, I don't care if it's this year or next year, you can have your mitzvah balloons. And
what if you have
family is a little different?
Yeah, but, like knowing the client personally, like makes it totally.
But in general, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. They're listening to you.
I was going to say, in general, just making sure that you give them a credit, put some limits on it. What stung people a lot, for the second round was they moved all of their events out of the spring and summer of 2020. And they moved it out to fall, winter, or even this coming summer, and we're still not sure things are going to be open. So clog
we have a
your 2020
customer,
calendar and you don't necessarily have the ability or the capacity to take in new 2021 revenues. And so the pain is just going to continue financially. So sort of
Right.
controlling when they can reschedule that. Like if you don't want them to reschedule during your boom months of 2021, say that. You know, if you need them to reschedule within 18 months, say that.
Yeah.
If I
So then I
could,
just- oh.
I'm sorry, if I could take us back to the subject of contracts. We had a couple questions that were asked a little earlier on. Hannah True also had this question. Flavia says she sends out a contract and an invoice at the same time. Sometimes they pay for the invoice without signing, which we touched on this briefly earlier
that's
on.
what I asked. Right?
And you know, sometimes they just do it. And so she put in her email whenever she sends it out that paying for the invoice acknowledges that they agree to the terms of the contract. Would that hold up?
It's really problematic. I mean, this sort of goes back to a question we already talked about. Having an email acknowledgement of a contract doesn't necessarily link it to the terms you thought they were agreeing to. And it's very hard to prove that. If push comes to shove, you might be in real trouble to prove that these were the terms they actually reviewed and agreed to. What you want.
So would you
is their
suggest
signature.
sending out the contract and once that's signed, then sending out the invoice?
100%.
That's what
Okay,
we have.
so
We use that. I think we use Gigio, which is like Manager Cell, and they have to agree to the terms, and then it sends them the invoice for payment. So like they have to agree to everything
Yeah.
before they send their first.
And that
deposit
two-pronged
now, but it's going to
initial
be renamed after this.
engagement. It's got to be, you got to have your signature and you have to have your initial payment. Otherwise.
What if
Right.
they do a check to agree? Like they check on here and then there's a disclaimer underneath that says, by checking this box, you're agreeing to the terms, and they have to scroll all the way down before that box populates.
Yeah, that's as long as it is attached to the terms and conditions that you're agreeing to. Yeah, that's
Okay.
certainly you want. Because that's frequently
You scared
sort
me
of
when
thing
you
that's on
said signature. I
DocuSign.
was like, ah.
No, it's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement.
Okay,
that
just
they-
acknowledging. Yeah.
Yeah. Like DocuSign
Okay.
is something that is frequently used in legal documents. And there
So
are a
you-
million different pieces of software that are an electronic signature and acknowledgement of the terms and conditions.
Right.
So you said that we shouldn't do anything without even like a bouquet or like we do sometimes like a $20 bouquet. I don't really think anybody's going to sign a contract on that. They come, they pick it up, they leave, you know, with like, they call me up an hour before they need it. I say, oh yeah, I could do it. And you know, like, do you really think you need a contract for that? I mean, I know
I think you can
probably think
absolutely run your business the way you want to. And if you don't think any trouble's going to come of it, great.
Do a contract.
it
then.
does-
you're sounding a lot like my mother, you know.
Until, yeah.
And
My
for
job
sure,
is
you
to
know,
be as
you want to do
efficient.
that, that's
Right.
fine, but you know,
If that's
Yeah.
how you want to
Nothing
do
wrong
it,
with
it's
a
fine.
bouquet.
I'm not going to call
until-
you Mary Ellen, I'm going to call you Mom.
Right.
People call me a lot of things, but I want to make sure that we're looking out for
Yeah.
you.
I'm just teasing
Yeah.
you know that.
Well, that's why
So
we started.
we have a
that's
lot
why
of
we started
stuff.
doing the small where people could my delivery shop. So if something is now under $150, I can send them straight to that website. They can process everything right there, and it generates a little mini contract of like, this is what you're getting. This is what time the delivery is. You understand that it's pay in full and like all that, and then they click it right there. Because my husband got tired of sending out contracts for stuff that was less than $50. He's like, I don't want to
Yeah.
sit here and generate a contract and do all this extra stuff for. So that's why we came up with the what is that called? Like it's e-commerce. What is that called? The website that I have. for
Yeah,
the-
it's e-commerce. Does that
Yeah.
hold up? Something like that?
I mean, honestly, I'd
Hmm.
always have to look.
She would have to
Depends
review
on
it.
what the
Right.
problem is.
No, but I mean
Yeah.
something that is just like for smaller orders, like a smaller, not so deep, like we don't need force majeure. We don't need any of that because it's just a small transaction. It's like you go to the grocery store and buy a container of milk. I mean, those
Yeah.
little things like that.
It's basically like ordering a balloon bouquet off of Amazon. Like they click it and they pay for it. And except for they're setting up the delivery date, but yeah, everything is right there. And thankfully, knock on wood, people are usually ordering stuff 4 days out. So they're like, the chances of them canceling that are so slim. But I am prepared for them to, like, if they need to cancel that, like, I'll cancel it for them. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's so different from like the decor, like the big pieces versus these smaller pieces versus the entertainment. It's like the little mini contracts that you make for all these separate, it's all balloons.
Mhm.
But it's like
They're
being
all
a
different.
twister, like having that entertainer contract and having the balloon decor contract and having the balloon delivery contract. Like it's so interesting
Well,
how
you
many
can just make one
details
that's
can
all
go into different
encompassing.
ones.
Yeah,
I would say that maybe
you
have
easily
two different
generate
levels
a
of your
full
contract.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say two different, so that way you've got your one that's for like your large events, and then if you've got your smaller $20 orders or something. I personally have a contract, and my contract's probably more simpler because it's not 5 pages long. And again, I use Manager Sal, so it's all on the website for me. It's all the information is saved on the website for me. And I do that because whenever it comes tax time, every single order I have is spelled out right there on Manager Sal. And so it makes my bookkeeping so easy at the end of the year, because I'm a bad girl and I wait until, February, March to actually start pulling all of my stuff together.
Well, QuickBooks would do that for you too. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, no, that's a whole, but if I put
That's
it
a
in
whole other
Manager Sal,
episode, folks.
yeah, if I put
Yeah.
it in Manager Sal, I've got all my and this is not a plug for Manager Sal, but it has all of my contacts, all of my business contacts in there, all of my contracts, all the dates, everything is. And so it's like one-stop shopping for me, kind of like how Dubsado or 17 Hats is. I don't know if anybody else uses those, but
Yeah, I was using 17 Hats, and then we found Gigio because we found that we were able to do Dave's contracts for his magic, for when he's doing his magic shows. We can use that same program, and we have all the different contracts in there. And because the reason why we started doing a decor contract separate from a twisting contract is because the amount of details that goes into my decor contract, as far as like, I need a power outlet, the weather clause, all these different things I don't need for my twisting contract. If somebody's
Right.
just hiring
And
me
design
to
protections,
stand
all of those
and
things.
yeah, like, and twist
Yeah.
balloons, I don't need a power outlet. I don't need anything. All I need is to know where I'm standing, because like I bring everything with me. And then
Right.
that's like, in that contract I have where if they want to add another hour or half an hour, that's something that's detailed in there that I don't need detailed in my decor contract. And then, so it's all, we had to go with the different program other than Manager Sal, because I needed to have several different contracts, literally all for different balloon
Thing,
stuff.
right.
I regularly will take a client that has a master service that they offer. We will write up their contract, and that is sort of the heavy lifting is done then. And then they have photographers, for example. Wedding and corporate is different, so they have slightly different iterations for that. If they're doing portrait shots,
Right.
baby shots, those are all separate contracts because they have different particularities. And you don't want baby language in the corporate contract. So just for clarity for your clients, splitting them up, I think makes a lot of sense. And I regularly advocate for that. I do want to clear something up just before we move on, because I don't want people walking away thinking that I think a mini contract's a good idea. Yes, your business, do what you want to, but promise there are things and protections in your master contract that could very potentially come up that you will want in a mini contract. And if those things go wrong and then you don't have it in your mini contract, then you're sort of afloat. So that's my
So
plug.
Mary Ellen, I
Language.
just want to ask you real quick, because I know that we're running out of time quickly. What, in your opinion, are your absolute must-haves that you need to have in your contracts?
Good Lord, that's my answer is so long.
Just a couple.
Yeah, somebody in the chat
Scheduling
asked like
clause, the payment
your
clause,
5 tops. Yeah.
the
Yeah,
scheduling
top 5.
payment,
Let's say top 5.
cancellation that play well together, 100% of force majeure clause, and detailed your services. But generally, I mean, don't be too specific, because anything you put down with real specificity, you'll be held.
Right.
And then anything
It
you
was
don't
supposed to
mention,
be a yellow balloon there. Why isn't there a yellow balloon?
yeah, you don't want to, and that's also really high maintenance. You don't want your contract to sort of bind you in that way either. So, yeah.
Okay,
But I got-
thank you for that.
Like it, depending on what business you're in, where you are, what exactly you're doing. Entertainment's its own thing. Design is its own thing, you know. Yeah, and you just have very specific language for those situations.
Okay.
Jessica Zillman has mentioned she uses HoneyBook where she can have unlimited contracts. You know, I use Manager Sal. You guys have
17
mentioned
hats.
e-commerce, 17 hats, Dubsado.
I use
Jen
Gigio.
Nikos, Gigio. Jen Nikos and Robin Beach looks like they're asking about how you set up a DocuSign, and they're being tech challenged. It sounds like it's for most of us, it's just incorporated into
The
what
program.
service we're using.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Your
just
point of
started
sale.
setting up 17 hats. I'm not finished yet. It's like, anyway.
It's a pain.
But
It is not
but it
easy
has-
to set up.
But it has in the contract like a DocuSign thing. It should be in whatever CRM or contract program you're using. There should be some sort of thing that auto-populates that place for them to
Yeah.
DocuSign, I think.
Mary Ellen,
Yeah.
are you able to set people up with like an electronically signed contract that doesn't use a pre-existing service?
Sure, but normally what I'm doing is I'm providing the business with language that's flexible.
That's going in,
Most
yeah.
often I'm delivering you something that you can edit for small changes so the contract can really grow with you. You know, if your
Mhm.
hours change, your prices change, you want to be able to really address those things. Yes, I can. You know, I do work outside of weddings and events where we do electronic signing of documents, and that's something you can do. But for weddings and events, there are at least 12 very reputable software systems that, you know, I write the terms, you plug them in, you then automated it, and they almost always have a record keeping
Right.
aspect, and they certainly take signatures.
Yeah, that's why we started using Gigio, because I found out that I could do it on my phone, and that was like, yes. And
That's
then
me
with repeat clients, it's awesome because it's like, cool, just click their name, click and plug in the new thing, and then I just send it off, and it's.
Yeah.
But it was all
Yeah.
it was all set up on the Gigio, just like with Manager Sal and 17 Hats. Like you actually have to sit down with the program and plug in your own contracts and things, and then the payment portal is something that you can add to it. So it's not added to all of our contracts. I do have to like click a button to add that, but it is there.
Yeah, it's the one thing that I love about Manager Sal, and it's pretty streamlined. I'm realizing as I have gotten more and more into decor that I might have outgrown Manager Sal a little. I know it's constantly changing, just so that I can add in things like COVID clause and whatnot. Debbie, you were about to
That's
say
a
something.
good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I just think that our biggest issue, and I'm listening to this, is that so much of our decor is last minute. I got a call right before we went on now of somebody who wants something for Sunday. Very hard to generate a contract, and I guess if I had it set up better, it
Well,
would.
you just have your
once you-
word.
but we don't have
set it up. Yeah, once you set it up, it's so the first few contracts that I had to do, because you guys know, like for Mary Ellen, just to let you know, my husband was managing the company for me. So anytime a client would call, they would call him. He would put all the contracting
Right.
stuff in for me, and then I just got to be the artist. And then I had to be a big girl and manage my own company and learn how to generate the contracts myself. And so Dave had to sit down with me and teach me how to put all that in. The nice thing now is that I sit down and I know that I need their first and last name, their email, contract phone number, and the location. Those are things that I absolutely have to have in order to generate that contract. And I just plug all that in real quick, like, and just send it off, and it's done. But learning.
Is it
how
an
to send
invoice
that-
or a contract?
both? So it's the contract, it's the agreement first, which is the contract. They click OK, and then it sends them another email for the payment portal for their deposit, which again, we're going to change the terminology on that. So it sends them the deposit, and then it sends them an invoice saying you've paid your deposit. You know, here's all of your confirmation and everything, and the remaining balance is due on this day, which is normally the day before the event. And then once the day of the event, whenever that's due, it auto generates a reminder. Hey, just to let you know, you have a payment due with
Payment
me.
due.
And so it does all of that for me. So all I have to do is get those like 5 pieces of information. Like,
You're
remember
good.
to get the phone number, the first and last name, their email address, and where the event is. And that's that. It all plugs in, and it all
I
does
think
it
this
automatically for me.
I think this all goes back to what I talk about all the time, that I'm a little bit of a dinosaur, that I'm from a time I started my business, now it's about 30 years ago. And we just, first of all, people weren't as litigious. We for years, we had no contract at all. And I see that we really have to like populate it a little better than we have, because it's, but I think it comes from being comfortable and not, not having to start fresh. When you start fresh, so you start with all the new stuff. So
Mhm.
this was
And
very enlightening.
Mary Ellen,
Mary
my
Ellen, and-
background. Go ahead, Debbie. I'm sorry.
No, I just was going to thank Mary Ellen. This was very enlightening for me, of how I really gotta, like she said, put on my big girl pants.
I had to put on my big girl pants and
Right.
learn how
Start
to do
doing
my own
this, because it's going
Well,
to come bite me
my-
somewhere where I don't want to be bitten.
Yeah.
My background is in human resources, Mary Ellen, so I don't trust anybody.
Right. Yeah, I partner with a
I
lot
don't
of
trust anybody
human
or
resource
anything.
persons, and
Yeah,
we
$20
spend,
bouquet. Yeah, no.
Well, that's why it's so obvious to me that
That's
you come
everything.
from a corporate background, because
Yeah, I've seen it all.
see how
I've seen
yeah.
people try to sue McDonald's because their kid choked on a French fry while running through the place, and
yeah.
I've seen it all. I've seen it
Yeah.
all. I've heard it all.
And
And
for
if people
me,
can
I
figure out
have,
a way to
you
get
know,
hurt with a balloon, they will.
Yeah.
At some point. So
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. A $20
That's-
bouquet, their kid wraps the ribbon around their neck, you're in
Yeah.
court.
yeah.
nothing-
You
So,
have no
um,
contract,
And that's
you
where
have no
maybe your mini
nothing.
contract would bite you, because you didn't
Right.
put in limitations.
Yeah,
on liability.
absolutely.
right. I'm not responsible for what your kid does with the balloon when I'm not there.
If you don't
Yeah,
have
I
any
spent
contract,
about
though,
4
they could
pages talking
say,
about that. Exactly.
yeah.
I didn't know that they could pull down the helium balloon. I thought that it was going to stay up there. I mean, this is true.
Yeah,
I'm
oh,
sure,
yeah,
Mary
people
Ellen,
will-
you can
yeah.
attest to this. People will say and do whatever
Yeah.
they can.
You mix people and alcohol, at some point, everything.
oh yeah.
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 Or my favorite is like, I don't know if we've all experienced this, but I didn't know that the pink was going to be such a pink shade.
Well, that's a whole nother.
I don't, but you said pink, and I sent you that color, and that's what your contract says is pink. Like,
Mhm.
what? So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about somebody trying to sue me
Somebody
because their
getting
baby
hurt.
No,
choked on a
tried
balloon.
to they
Yeah.
wanted
Long
all of
contract.
their money. They wanted all of
Yeah,
their money back because
right.
they didn't like the shade of pink. Like
Yeah,
that's
that one's
they
easier
were
to sort
asking
it out.
like, and I was like, no, that's not, no.
Yeah.
You said pink.
So, in talking about getting sued and whatnot, we would just, I think maybe some people need to hear this from a lawyer's perspective. What do you think about people having insurance?
Oh, businesses absolutely should have insurance. Just, errors and omissions, something to protect you. Just sit down with somebody who provides commercial insurance for your business.
That we have.
Also, if you're organizing events or in a sort of a planning position, I love wedding insurance, and it's so easy to get. I always recommend that people send their clients to give them a few choices. So if they have a bad experience, it's not on you, but a few places they can explore getting insurance for their events.
And if you
Oh,
want to
so you're
if you
actually
wanna
talking
do-
about sending your clients to go get insurance. I'm talking about us getting insurance.
Us
There
getting
are a
insurance.
lot of
Everybody
people
should have
out
public
there
insurance.
that don't have insurance, and they're gambling with their business,
And their
their house, their
personal life.
livelihood.
And their houses and their cars and their everything.
Yeah. Well, and that even goes to, making sure that you're properly set up as an entity, in a specific kind of entity,
Yes.
that you need to be in your state. Because if you aren't, then, your grandma's stamp collection is, on the table if something goes badly. You just want to make sure that, you have that liability protection of making sure everything is going through the business. So if the business goes down, it does. But, you still have your kids' college fund.
And there's
Right.
there's a lot of venues. I mean, at least here in Las Vegas, I know a lot of the corporates and stuff that I work with, they require me
Yes.
to have insurance, and I have to
Yeah.
have proof of insurance. And sometimes, depending on the venue, they will even say how much insurance I have to have covered.
Yeah.
So like it's definitely, it's if you want to do those corporates, make sure you have insurance, because they will
And
ask
you-
you for proof.
And you often have to add the venue as an additional insured.
Mhm.
They want to
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that, your balloons cause whatever. That I
Whatever it
have.
is, yep.
That I'm not such a dinosaur. That we
So
have.
those are
Yeah.
jobs and clients that you know that it's required. What I am always scared about, and I try to protect myself from, is the unknown, which is the private parties. And I think that a lot of us in the industry underestimate private clients and what they're capable of. And we
Yeah,
more
totally.
focus on protecting ourselves when we're walking into a dealership, a warehouse, a department store, but we freely go into people's homes and we're completely unprotected.
Why
And
doesn't your insurance covers you for that as well?
oh, of course, mine does.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
just
mine
No,
does,
you mean
speaking
people who
to,
don't have
I'm
insurance,
generally
right,
speaking
right.
that, yeah, you can't just think about needing insurance for being able to do corporate jobs, because some of the most dangerous jobs that we do
Are
are
in someone's house.
Someone's home.
Johnny and Susie Q's second birthday, when
Yeah.
when you're walking through their house and you have all sorts of things can happen.
Not only that, a lot of times if something happens at somebody's house, they don't even have a choice but to sue you, because their insurance company will make them sue your insurance company so that they're not liable, like that
Right.
they don't lose
Yeah.
money. So sometimes even if you're friends with somebody and something happens, they have to sue you. So you certainly want your business, even for a small, you're going to somebody's house and you plug in your machine and it blows the neighborhood.
Talk to
Gotta be
any
covered.
reputable cleaning lady that you know. If they are a true bonded and insured cleaning person that goes into somebody's home, they have the best insurance. I
Right.
guarantee you, they have the best insurance that you can get.
You're right.
Yeah. Insurance.
I
is
have a
good.
lot to think about, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so
sleep tonight.
I think we're kind of winding down. We did begin a little bit late and we've gone a little over. I think we've covered most everything. Let's see. So we've, I think, covered everybody in the chat. So thank you guys so much in the chat that are joining us live with your questions. And Jessica Zillman says, the e-private people are more inclined to sue you before the corporation.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mady Garcia, I hope I'm saying your name right, hun. Yes, you do got to get insurance. That's a big thing. That's why I was like, I want to hear it out of the lawyer's mouth. Get insurance, people.
Yeah.
Protect
The
yourselves.
lawyer's mouth.
Protect
You
protect
guys should have
yourselves.
a commercial insurance person on at some point. They will tell you all about it.
That's not a bad idea. I remember Steve saying it, one of I think his stepchats or something, and he was talking about we all suffer from new people coming who just do organics and they slide into your neighborhood and do it cheaper and everything. And he said, when somebody calls you and says so and so does it cheaper, say, do they have insurance? Because
Great tip.
and to me that was like the light bulb moment. If they don't have insurance, then you're not covered for any emergency, and that would be a bad thing. So
Right.
yes, get insurance, people.
Yeah. You don't necessarily, and this is outside of legal advice, but I don't think you necessarily want to be the cheapest in town.
No, we know that. We all
definitely don't. Yeah.
There's a market for that, and if that's your market, you do that really well. But
yeah, that's
no. None of us want to be.
Yeah.
No, but people call you up and
people
they
will say that.
Why are you so much more?
Yeah.
So one of the things to explain it is, I'm
Mhm.
licensed, I'm registered, I pay a lawyer, I have insurance.
I'm not going to attach things to your air conditioning vent.
Yeah, good one.
It's everybody in the chat is thanking you, Mary Ellen.
Yes, thank you so much.
They are so excited to get all of this. Oh my gosh, look at all the hearts and smiles and stuff popping up on here. So we really appreciate you coming out tonight. We're gonna do we're gonna kind of go round robin a little bit here with some info for you guys. Why don't you go ahead and get started with our outro here, Ronnie?
So I just want to remind everybody that most of the stuff that we've talked about here is our opinions and our personal, like what we do personally. So, don't think that you have to do things the way that we do things, but definitely take a lot of advice from Mary Ellen because she knows her stuff.
And I want to remind everybody about Melissa Vincent's class. I don't know exactly when registration ends. You still have a while to sign up for it. It's on February 23rd, a Tuesday again at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I love Melissa. She's always fun. She's always entertaining, and she always has great tips. And she'll be talking about gearing up for graduation, which who knows what that will be this year, but I'm sure she'll have a bunch of great ideas. So sign up for that.
Wonderful. All right, guys, we have our youngest working wonder this week. We would like to
So excited.
recognize Samantha Wiltz. Her father, Daniel, actually posted on the Float the Convention page some pictures of his daughter in their shop, and she was creating some beautiful decor pieces all on her own. Young Samantha is only 9 years old, and she is already... Are these, can you guys
So
see my
great.
We
pictures?
see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's an accomplished balloon artist.
Yes,
Look
So
at that.
awesome.
she is learning how to twist different knots. Her father said that she is so intrigued by every little thing that she always wants to be a part of what they're doing. She likes to help inflate.
I think
So,
she
and I
came to
just,
Float last year also.
was she?
I think he said that she came to Float last year.
Oh,
Great.
Yeah, I think I might be upside down. Sorry, guys.
You're sideways.
that's
You're
great. You're sideways. We'll just,
There you
there
go.
you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So anyway, we just want to say, Samantha, thank you so much. We're so proud of you, and keep it up, girlfriend. We know that you're going to do wonderful things within the industry, and we are excited to see what you got in store. You guys, don't forget that if you are a working wonder, if you've overcome an obstacle, if you've done an amazing design, we want to hear about it. And also, if you know someone that has overcome an obstacle or has come up with an amazing design or has done something wonderful, please private message one of the four of us, or you can always send an email to floatworkingwonders@gmail.com.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Lisa, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I apologize for that, guys. I'm actually going to hand the mic over to Mary Ellen for a second. And while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and share in the chat on Facebook her contact information in case you guys are in her area. She does practice in a few states. And Mary Ellen, go ahead and give us your closing there.
Yeah, I just want to thank my hosts, and I want to thank all the attendees. I love doing things like this. I've really invested in making sure the industry is legally healthy. I'd love to hear from any of you if you have some questions or you want to talk about some projects. I do want to say that everything I've said here is generalities about contracts, none of it's specific legal advice. For specific legal advice, we'd have to talk. You'd have to tell me what your business actually is, what your problems actually are, where you are geographically, because it'll all vary a little bit depending on what state you're in. So if you want specific legal advice, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you more formally.
I think you're going to hear from quite a few of us.
I dare say you might have a busy
couple weeks ahead.
So again, I would really like to thank Mary Ellen for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you coming out and dropping some knowledge on us. I know that I learned several things today. And if you guys aren't changing the verbiage in your contracts tomorrow morning, shame on you. So I would like to invite everybody to join us next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the first in a two-part episode series where we're going to be discussing our must-have tools, bags, and aprons next week. The following, we're going to be discussing larger equipment, bigger investments in your business. But next week, it's must-have tools, bags, aprons, and things that we personally bring on a job are just can't go anywhere without it, must have this stuff with us. And maybe you guys pick up on something like that or teach us something new. We'd like to thank all of you guys for watching us tonight. Working Wonders is not just us, it's you. And more importantly, Working Wonders is not just who we are, it's what we do, guys. So we really appreciate you coming out tonight. We hope to see you next week. So bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.